Look at the night sky above your head right now and ask the question that humanity has whispered in the shadows for millennia. What are we really seeing when we look at the stars? For centuries, we have been told that up there exists only a vacuum, cosmic dust, and, for the more religious, an abstract spiritual realm inhabited by angels playing harps and light entities without physical form. But what if everything you have been taught about ancient history, about the origin of religions, and about divine contact is fundamentally wrong? What if the truth is not spiritual, but technological? There is an ancient text, a document that was deliberately removed from the canonical Bible, hidden in caves and preserved only in dead languages for centuries, which tells a very different story. This is not an account of inexplicable miracles or dream visions. It is a technical report. It is a logbook. We are talking about the Book of Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah, the seventh patriarch of the lineage of Adam. The Bible says only one enigmatic sentence about him. Enoch walked with God, and he was no more, because God took him. But what does it mean to be taken? Where did he go? And, most importantly, what did he see? Prepare yourself, because what we are about to explore now will challenge the very foundation of your reality. Enoch did not die. He was the first human being in recorded history to be physically taken off this planet, and he left a detailed record of what he found. When we analyze the apocryphal texts of Enoch through the lens of modern technology and aerospace engineering, the mist of mysticism dissipates and reveals something terrifying and wonderful. Enoch does not describe angels with white feathered wings. He describes beings called sentinels, or the watchers, entities that descended from the heavens with equipment, forbidden knowledge, and machines that made the earth tremble. He describes structures that rotated with the sound of thunder, houses built of crystal that floated in the air, and wheels within wheels that spat fire. Imagine a man from the Bronze Age, someone who only knows the wooden wheel and the fire of a campfire, being placed before a Saturn V rocket or an interstellar ship. How would he describe the shiny, metallic fuselage? He would call it ice or crystal. How would he describe the exhaust of the thrusters? He would call it tongues of fire and lightning. How would he describe the command cabin illuminated by digital panels? He would say it was a throne of glory surrounded by living lights. What you are about to hear is not theology. It is the decoding of the first extraterrestrial contact in human history. Why did the early church and religious councils fight so hard to ban the Book of Enoch from the sacred scriptures? Why was it considered too dangerous for the general public? Perhaps because Enoch's narrative removes the veil of the supernatural and places us face to face with a physical and palpable reality. We are not alone, and our creators or visitors are not ethereal spirits, but advanced civilizations that use tangible vehicles to traverse the cosmos. Enoch's description of his ascent to the heavens is visceral. He speaks about fear, about trepidation, about the change in temperature, and about the vision of the earth becoming small below him. This is not an astral projection. This is a launch. When he enters what he calls the house of the heavens, he describes walls that were like hailstones and tongues of fire, and says that fear covered him and trembling took him. Think of the vibration of a ship breaking through the atmosphere. Enoch was describing, with the limited vocabulary of his time, the physical experience of an astronaut being taken to a space station or mothership. Throughout this journey in 5 parts, we will dissect every verse, every description, and every technical detail that Enoch recorded. We will compare his visions with modern engineering, with astrophysics, and with contemporary reports of UFO sightings. You will see that the coincidences are, in fact, evidence. The story of Enoch is the master key that connects the pyramids, the Sumerian gods, the Anunnaki, and modern ufology. But to understand the magnitude of what he saw, we first need to understand who the hosts of this trip were. Who were these beings who invited him to enter their celestial chariots? They were not just passive observers. The Book of Enoch tells us that they had a hierarchy, they had names, they had specific functions. And, even more disturbingly, they had disagreements. Some of these beings disobeyed the laws of their own people to interact with humanity, to teach us metallurgy, astronomy, cosmetics, and the art of war. We are talking about a direct intervention in human evolution, recorded step by step by an eyewitness who was taken to see the base of operations of these visitors. The big question that hangs over us at this moment is, if Enoch described spaceships thousands of years ago, where are they now? And what if the answer is right before our eyes, camouflaged by centuries of dogmas and erroneous interpretations? What Enoch saw in the sky was not the theological paradise sold to us in Sunday school. He saw a complex infrastructure of interstellar travel. He saw portals, he saw propulsion mechanisms, and he saw the geography of the universe mapped by superior intelligences. The promise of this script is simple, but devastating. By the end, you will never look at a Renaissance painting of angels or a biblical text the same way again. You will begin to see the metal behind the wings and the engine behind the cloud. Enoch's journey begins with a consented kidnapping. He is removed from his family, from his simple life, and is transported to a high-technology environment that he can barely understand, but which he strives to describe with agonizing precision. He speaks of a place where the ceiling was like the path of the stars and lightning, and between them cherubim of fire, and their sky was water. Try to visualize this not as magic, but as the description of someone looking into deep space through the window of a ship, seeing the vast cosmic ocean and other ships buzzing around. The water above the firmament is not rain, it is the dark and fluid vacuum of space. Enoch was there. He saw the earth as a sphere suspended in nothingness. And now, we are going to reopen this confidential file. We will translate the language of the prophets into the language of scientists. Prepare to enter the ship along with him. What would you do if you discovered that the history of humanity is not a straight line of evolution, but an experiment monitored by intelligences that do not belong to this world? When the door of that ship closed and the stars began to pass like streaks of light through the windows that Enoch described as crystal openings, he ceased to be just a biblical patriarch, to become the first recorded abductee in history and the first to document the complex power structure that governs the earth in the shadows. To understand what he saw up there, we first need to understand what happened down here, so that this account was so violently erased from our collective consciousness. For centuries, the Book of Enoch was read, respected, and studied by the first Christians and Jews, until something changed drastically in religious politics. The book was not removed from the biblical canon because it was considered a lie, but perhaps, and this is the key that changes everything, because it was a truth too dangerous for the masses. What Enoch reports is not an abstract mystical vision. It is a military intelligence report on a planetary occupation force. The suppressed history tells us that knowledge was banned because it humanized the angels too much, giving them desires and physical bodies, but the reality is more disturbing. The text was hidden because it revealed the identity of our jailers. In the Gnostic tradition, which flourished and was persecuted at the same time that Enoch's texts circulated, these beings were called Archons. The Greek word archon means ruler, prince, or magistrate. They are not demons with horns and pitchforks from medieval folklore. They are cosmic bureaucrats, the architects of a control system that keeps humanity in a state of ignorance and subservience. Enoch calls them watchers or egregor. The term itself carries immense weight. Those who never sleep, those who observe from above. They were not spirits of ethereal light playing harps. Enoch describes beings of immense stature, with faces that shone like the sun and clothes that seemed made of feathers, but they were not biological feathers. They were suits. They were uniforms of a technologically superior civilization. They descended on Mount Hermon, a precise geographical location, which transforms the myth into a traceable historical event. They did not appear in a dream. They landed at a physical coordinate, and here we enter the most terrifying concept that Enoch presents to us: the exchange of forbidden technology. The Watchers did not just observe, they violated the first directive of Enoch explicitly lists what they taught men: metallurgy, to create swords and knives; the use of roots and plants to create spells that today we would call advanced pharmacology; astronomy, to read the cycles of time; and, most curiously, the use of cosmetics and adornments for seduction. They accelerated our technical evolution, but purposely corrupted our moral evolution. Does this sound familiar to you? It is exactly the pattern of an advanced civilization colonizing a primitive culture. They gave us mirrors and weapons, and in exchange, they took control of our genetics. The book details that these beings took human wives and fathered the Nephilim, hybrid giants who consumed the labor of men. If we translate this into the language of modern science, we are talking about direct genetic engineering. We are talking about species hybridization. The Archons, these fallen angels, were creating a subspecies to rule the earth in their name, an elite of mixed blood that would serve as the foreman of humanity. That is why the flood was necessary in the ancient narrative. It was not an emotional tantrum of an offended creator. It was an emergency laboratory sterilization to contain a biological contamination that was out of control. Enoch saw the architecture of this control from above, far beyond the atmosphere. He was taken to see the prisons where some of these rebel angels were locked up. He saw abysses of fire and celestial columns that trembled. But the most fascinating description, the one that proves he was inside an artificial structure and not in a spiritual heaven, is the description of the house of the Watchers. He says he approached a wall built of crystal stones and surrounded by tongues of fire. Imagine the difficulty of a man from antiquity trying to describe tempered glass, higher resistance, transparent polymers, or force fields. He says he entered this house and that it was hot as fire and cold as ice. How can something be hot and cold at the same time? Think of an artificial climate control system, or the thermal insulation of the hull of a spaceship that faces the absolute zero of outer space on one side and the heat of re-entry on the other. He saw the ceiling formed by paths of stars and lightning. If you were in a ship with a panoramic ceiling or holographic screens showing stellar navigation, how would you describe that to a shepherd from 5,000 years ago? You would say the ceiling was made of stars. Enoch was describing the bridge of command. He saw the technology of the Archons, the machinery behind the miracles, and realized that the throne of glory was not just a seat of judgment, but the control center of a vast and complex operation. He saw wheels that turned cherubim that were not chubby babies, but vehicles and automatons that guarded the perimeter. What was sold to us as religion was, in fact, the account of a close encounter of the fifth kind with the administrators of the solar system. And now that we understand who the owners of the house are, we need to examine the house itself. The colossal ship that he described with details that challenged the logic of his time and confirm ours. As we enter this structure that Enoch calls a house built with hailstones and tongues of fire, we are confronted with a thermal paradox that no shepherd of antiquity could invent. For he describes an environment that is simultaneously freezing like ice and burning like a furnace, which in modern physics we know as a high-energy plasma state and superconductivity, suggesting that the walls of that ship were not made of bricks or inert metal, but of condensed energy held in an extremely felt in an extremely sophisticated magnetic containment field. What Enoch witnesses here is not just architecture, it is the manifestation of a technology that manipulates matter at a quantum level, where vibration determines solidity and temperature ceases to be a linear variable to become a controllable property of the environment, creating a habitat that sustains life forms based on light and not just carbon. But the crucial point, the one that changes everything we know about human interaction with the divine, is what happens to Enoch's biological body upon crossing this threshold. For he reports that his spirit was transfigured and his flesh melted, not in the sense of death, but of molecular reconfiguration necessary for survival. Here we enter the forbidden science of ascension, because to be in the presence of these beings and navigate within these celestial chariots, standard human biology is insufficient, requiring Enoch to describe an overwhelming fear that makes his bones tremble, a natural physiological reaction in the face of an electromagnetic field of incalculable power. But soon he is enveloped in what he calls robes of glory. Forget the simplistic idea of fabric clothes, for we are talking about a personal force field, a drastic alteration in the vibrational frequency of his aura or bioelectric field that allows his consciousness to survive in a higher dimension without his nervous system entering total collapse. The science of the soul that the Book of Enoch secretly delivers to us is the understanding that holiness is in fact a specific resonance frequency, and when ancient texts speak of elevating the spirit, they are literally describing the acceleration of the oscillation of the subatomic particles that make up the being, allowing dense matter to tune into the subtle matter of that colossal ship. The angels he sees are not just flying, they are operating through complex harmonics, and the incessant singing he describes, the sound of many waters and thunder, must be interpreted today as the technology of acoustic levitation and sonic manipulation of reality, where sound frequency organizes matter. We know today that sound can levitate objects and restructure cells through cymatics, and inside that colossal ship, acoustics did not serve for religious entertainment, but for the maintenance of the very structure of local reality and for the calibration of the DNA of whoever entered that sacred space. Enoch was subjected to a process of instant biological upgrade, where latent genetic information was activated to support the load of knowledge he was about to receive, explaining why he could look at the crystal throne, which emitted streams of flaming fire, without being incinerated by radiation, for he was no longer just a man of the earth, but a vibrational hybrid capable of processing data at the speed of light. The vision of the throne is not decorative, it is functional, describing a command center where wheels turn within wheels, a perfect description of electromagnetic gyroscopes or torsion engines that generate the gravitational fields. necessary for the ship to move without inertia and manipulate the fabric of space-time. But the pilot of this ship, the great glory he mentions, operates at a level of unified consciousness where thought and action are instantaneous, revealing that angelic technology does not have buttons or levers, but is controlled by the mind. The most profound lesson of this block lies in the understanding that the ship and the pilot are an integrated system, a direct neural interface that connects the occupant's mind to the propulsion systems, requiring Enoch's mind to be expanded beyond the linear limitations of time and space, entering a state of quantum entanglement with the ship's intelligence. The oil, he mentions, which transformed him and made him shine, can be seen as a nanotechnological substance or a cellular restructuring field that purified his terrestrial density, allowing him to become a conductor of cosmic electricity instead of a resistor that would burn out. All of this points to a disconcerting truth about our own history, suggesting that spiritual evolution is intrinsically linked to the physics of light and that the ancient prophets were not having hallucinations, but rather describing close encounters with a civilization that masters the engineering of the soul. By understanding that ascension is a technical process of frequency change, we realize that the fall of the angels, which we will see next, was not just a moral disobedience, but a catastrophic vibrational downgrade, a voluntary densification that trapped them in matter, and forces us now to look into the abyss to understand the cosmic crime that the Sentinels committed by descending to dense matter. This forced descent into density is not just a footnote in ancient history or a forgotten myth about rebel angels, but rather the foundation of the very limited reality we experience today. For by understanding that the fall was a vibrational event, we immediately perceive that Enoch's ascension represents the reverse path, the escape map that was left for humanity as a legacy of light amidst the shadows cast by the Sentinels. The great revelation of this block is not just about what Enoch saw on the outside, but about what he needed to activate on the inside to be able to interact with those celestial chariots and beings of fire without being consumed by the spiritual radiation they emanated. The ships, or structures we interpret as ships, operate at frequencies that the common human mind, trapped in the matrix of fear and survival, simply cannot process, and it is here that we enter the practice of awakening. For Enoch was not taken just because he was a good man, but because he mastered the internal technology of consciousness that allowed synchronization with those higher realities. To visualize what the patriarch saw, we need to perform an exercise of active gnosis, which begins with the understanding that your physical body is just the biological spacesuit that anchors your perception in this third dimension, while the true journey occurs when you learn to spin the energy fields around you. Imagine now the wheels within wheels that Enoch described with such precision, not as nuts and bolts of a metallic fuselage, but as vortices of electromagnetic energy that exists in potential within your own subtle anatomy. The practice of awakening requires you to close your eyes to the world of matter, which was corrupted by the warlike and seductive teachings of the fallen angels, and open your internal vision to the sacred geometry that composes your spirit. Visualize an axis of light that passes through your spinal column, connecting the center of the Earth to the center of the galaxy, and around this axis, fields of light that spin in opposite directions, creating the propulsion necessary for consciousness to detach from the gravity of the ego and manipulation. This is what the ancients called the Merkaba, the vehicle of ascension, and it is very likely that the ships described in the book were in fact, the external and technological manifestation of this universal spiritual principle that the Sentinels knew, but which they perverted by using it for war and domination. The secret they do not want you to know is that you do not need a physical ship to access the heavens, for the necessary equipment is already installed in your DNA, awaiting only the activation command that was forgotten through millennia of induced amnesia. However, to activate this organic technology, a fundamental step is necessary that most ignore: the breaking of contracts. The fallen angels, by descending and mixing with humanity, established pacts of dependence, teaching witchcraft, war, and vanity in exchange for our worship and our vital energy, creating a system where humanity tacitly consents to be governed by fear and materiality. Active gnosis is the act of withdrawing this consent. You must declare, with all the strength of your intention, that you no longer accept the vibration of scarcity and conflict as your primary reality, thus breaking the energetic ties with the egregore built by the Watchers. This is a moment of spiritual sovereignty where you recognize that, although you inhabit a world influenced by these ancient intelligences, you do not belong to them, and your origin is the same luminous source that allowed Enoch to walk with God and not see death. By breaking this contract of submission, you begin to clear the static that interferes with your direct connection to the divine, allowing the visualization of higher realities to become clear and tangible. The practice continues with the constant observation of your thoughts and emotions, identifying which of them are yours and which are psychic implants inherited from this culture of fall. When Enoch looked into the abysses and saw the prisons of the angels, he did so as a detached observer, without letting himself be contaminated by the horror, keeping his frequency high. And that is exactly what we must do today in the face of the chaos of the modern world. Gnosis is not an intellectual accumulation of data, but the direct experience of truth. Feeling in your own skin the electricity of knowing that we are multi-dimensional travelers, momentarily anchored in carbon bodies. By practicing this daily visualization of your light vehicle, and by consciously revoking the contracts of fear, you begin to perceive that the ships might be much closer than we imagine, not coming from other planets, but emerging from other densities that coexist with us here and now. The barrier between us and the world Enoch saw is not distance, it is frequency. And the key to crossing this barrier is the purification of our own perception. We are preparing to understand the final message, the ultimate warning that connects the remote past to our immediate future. For what Enoch saw at the end of his journey was not just the structure of the universe, but the destiny of the human soul and the true secret that the fallen angels tried to hide and that Enoch left recorded between the lines of his celestial journey. This secret lies in the understanding that humanity was never just a passive spectator in a cosmic theater governed by superior entities, but rather the holder of a genetic and spiritual key that the fallen angels themselves desperately coveted. By coldly analyzing Enoch's descriptions of the houses built with crystals, the ceilings that imitated the path of the stars, and the wheels that turned within other wheels, we are forced to remove the glasses of medieval religiosity and put on the lenses of technological reality. What he describes as the dwelling of the Most High has all the characteristics of an immense mothership, a complex orbital structure where matter and energy are manipulated with a precision that, for a man of antiquity, could only be described as a miracle. However, the crucial point that defines the end of this saga is not the technology itself. But the reason why Enoch was taken there. He was not abducted just to be a scribe or a reporter of the apocalypse. He was taken to be transformed, suggesting that the final destiny of the human being is ascension. The ability to transmute one's own flesh into light, something that the Watchers, trapped in their dense materiality and their corrupted desires, had lost the ability to do. The great revelation that closes this cycle is that the ships, the dimensional portals, and the weapons of fire described in the book are not divinity, but only the tools of an advanced civilization that operates behind the scenes of human history. The true God, the infinite source, is beyond the machinery, beyond the wheels of fire, and beyond the walls of crystal. The fallen angels, by descending to Mount Hermon and mixing their code with that of the daughters of men, were not just seeking pleasure, they were trying to steal the divine spark that exists within each of us, a direct connection to the source that they, in their rebellion and fall, had cut. They gave us swords, mirrors, and witchcraft to distract us, to keep us focused on materialism and war, preventing us from looking inside and realizing that we are more powerful than the ships that cross the skies. Enoch saw all of this. He saw the future where humanity would be deceived by false wonders in the heavens, confusing technology with theology, and left his book as a time capsule, an urgent warning to the final generations that not everything that shines in the sky is sacred, and not everything that descends from the clouds brings peace. We are living exactly the moment he predicted. The skies are busier than ever, and the narrative of "they are among us" has ceased to be a conspiracy to become the official agenda of governments. But you, who have followed this journey this far, now possess the necessary discernment to separate the wheat from the chaff. The freedom that Enoch found was not in the crystal rooms, but in the acceptance of his mission and in the courage to speak the truth before terrifying cosmic powers. The supreme call of this script is not for you to fear the fallen angels or the ships they pilot, but for you to reclaim your spiritual sovereignty. The planetary prison they tried to build is made of ignorance, and every time we seek hidden knowledge, we are breaking the chains of this ancient slavery. The Book of Enoch remained hidden for millennia, not by chance, but because the system knew that, at the right time, humanity would need this information so as not to be deceived by a false invasion or by false technological saviors. Now, the weight of this knowledge is on your shoulders. What will you do with this information? Will you continue living as if the world were only what appears in the news? Or will you have the courage to look at the sky with different eyes, knowing that the true battle is not for territory, but for your consciousness? The story of Enoch is your story. It is the reminder that you can walk with the divine even in a corrupted world. If this content opened your mind and made you question the imposed reality, then our mission here has been fulfilled, but yours is just beginning. Do not let this video be just another passing entertainment on your screen. Make it the starting point for your own investigation. The truth is a scattered puzzle, and we need awakened minds to put the remaining pieces together. If you believe that humanity is ready to know the full truth, if you feel that there is something much larger happening behind the scenes of our reality, then manifest yourself now. Your interaction is the only way for us to show the algorithm and the world that we are no longer sleeping. Subscribe to the channel to be part of this intellectual and spiritual resistance. Leave your comments saying, "I see the truth," to firm your commitment to awakening. Share this knowledge with those who are also seeking answers, for freedom is only real when it is shared. The book has been opened, the seals have been broken, and the ships have been revealed. The rest of the story does not depend on Enoch, nor on the angels, nor on the giants. It depends solely and exclusively on you. Look at the sky, but, above all, look inside. Until the next journey in search of what they tried to hide from us.